want to show you this. This is, I know this is kind of fragmented the way I'm starting, but this is what I got in Europe. And it was so difficult to find. Oh, I should turn this down. My goodness. Wow, it's very loud. We're getting Frank fixed on Tuesday after the weekend, so we should be good. But anyways, back to this. It took me forever to find something that was handmade in Poland. Poland used to be a very, very industrious place. And particularly where I come from, which is more south, funny enough, it's more south of Poland, and it's the mountainous regions, which is so beautiful and wonderful. And whenever I go there, I always look for silver. And the reason why is it became kind of like a tradition when I started going there as a younger person. And it's funny because kind of like what was on my mind today, it, as usual, somehow segues into Europe and how Europe has been changed and altered in not the kindest of ways. And what's happening in Europe right now is it's unrecognizable for anybody that's European and has lived there or has been going and visiting regularly. And I will say that Poland has changed, not as severely as, say, Germany or France or even Portugal and Spain. Those countries, and Italy as well, those countries have got such a severe change that it's very sad for anyone that is from Europe and that has visited Europe regularly. It's very, very sad to see what is happening with our homelands. It's happening everywhere. It's happening in the States. It's happening in every first world country. And I would argue that all across the world, it's happening. And much like countries, I would say that humans in those countries are obviously as well changing. And the reason for the change is the humans in those countries are changing. And oh my gosh, did I say good morning? A good morning. And if I didn't, I'm sorry. And also, you're a little dirty. I'm back up north. It was an adventure. I'm not sure if I mentioned it in my last video, which I did 2 days ago, but it was a hell of a shit show coming down. Tobias, which is our red truck, died. So we ended up driving, well, I would name my daughter's car Pearl because she's like white. She's like pearl white. She's really little, and she's definitely got her shit together. So we're back up north, and I'm still recovering, to be honest with you. Now I don't know if it's just solely my diet that is causing me to be so lethargic. I also have gotten a swath. I don't know if that's the proper term, but I've gotten so many pimples on my face. Everything is like my face is busting with pimple buds everywhere. And I'm just lethargic. My brain isn't really, I find that it's not cohesive thinking the way that my brain is seeming, like the way my brain feels. So because we're going away, I'm super excited, and I will be recording when we go away to the Caribbean, because I want to show you guys how beautiful it is. And it might be the last one, because seeing as how WAR is happening, or like they are absolutely trying to make it happen. I don't know if this will be our last getaway. Also, money is starting to get tight, you know. Everybody's money is starting to get tight. And so let me know how you're doing money-wise, because everywhere I look, everybody is either trying to sell their house or trying to get out of debt, because they're realizing something big is happening. So who knows if this will be my last visit to the Caribbean. But yeah, I'm feeling a little bit lethargic. But back to the countries, I was thinking, because I finished reading a book. So Cutting Through the Matrix, Melissa has this thing where now she is telling us which books she's reading, and then they're doing a review with Nick Hayes from Hayes Reviews. I really like listening to him. I like his book reviews. They are thorough. They go through points that are very important from the book. So it's like a Cole's Notes, but in like 2-3 hours, because sometimes he does 2-3 hours, and then sometimes he's got more than one section. So part 1 through to 5 sometimes, depends, because some of the books are really big. Anyways, one of the books that Melissa and Nick had decided to read was a book called We. And I'll put it up on the screen because I don't remember. It's a Russian writer. I don't remember his name. I remember that it's just a difficult name. I'm bad at best of times when your name is like Samantha Smith. I may forget. So let alone such a complicated Russian name. Anyway, this book it's thought-provoking. It makes you think about how it would look like if humanity was beaten out of humans. That would be probably the single best way of explaining it, except actually there's even a better way. How the world would look if humanity was extracted scientifically from humans. I've got to stop in to get the mail, and I wonder if Bella's going to be here. I'm going to leave the door open in the event the dog, I'm going to put it on 4x4 so that I can get out. Okay. There's this dog called Bella, and she's this really cute boxer. Anyways, I gotta look it up because I'm saying boxer, but I'm not sure. Anyways, and I wonder if she's gonna come and visit me. Door open because I never know when this thing is gonna happen. Store, and I will eventually be selling it. It's beautiful, but anyway, it's so cute. You have like giving a fashion review right on the side of the road. It's got like this cute little collar that you can like tie up. It's a little bit big on me, but I love it. I love it. All right, anyway, squirrel. So this book, is literally a story about the future of humanity if we take the humanity out scientifically, and put it in. So I needed the 4x4 to get out, but I don't want the 4x4 on the road. Complications. And we're like, I don't know how many minutes in, and I've said nothing. Anyway, so this book, We, really is a very interesting way of it being written. Of course, it's by a Russian guy, and the way that he wrote was, as Melissa said, there was a lot of things you had to fill in for yourself. And I think that was a very interesting way of writing a book. Instead of being copiously, explicit in every detail, and when you read Twilight, that vampire story, or even like Harry Potter, everything is very colorfully and intricately explained and described, so you can get sort of the world around you. Whereas in this case, there's a lot of things not explained, so it's left to your own devices in terms of what your experience is and how you're going to interpret it. But the most important stuff is explained. And what is explained is, the first thing, if I could give you an idea of some of these sayings were brilliant. Like, for example, what was one of the sayings that I thought was brilliant? Imagination is perfected or cured. Imagination is cured through science, through operations. So it's really interesting, because in today's world, I think that if I had told you about this book, say 5 years ago, you wouldn't really quite think, it could be applied to, say, our society and the direction our society is taking. Ooh, there's a lot of slush. I gotta go slow because this thing is slippery. And if I had read it 5 years ago, I would have been able to see the potential to see how pharmaceutical intervention could absolutely cure us of our humanity. So let me just kind of give you some of the main points that I think it was a scary book because of how relatable it was. And like I said, 5 years ago, this would not be relatable to most people. Most people would dismiss it as, it's just fiction, and that's that. But one of the things that is very, very obvious in this book is that we are a whole, not individuals. Now, how I relate that to today, and I wonder if you would agree or disagree with me, but today we are working towards complete conformity. Why do I say that? Okay, example one, and the most important one, is what happened during Operation C. What happened with people? They lost their individual mind and they became a collective hive overnight, because people were so concerned about their own health and safety that they threw out the baby with the bathwater when it came to thinking about other people as well as themselves. Not just thinking about me, and how this will affect me, but thinking about others. They use the don't kill Granny thing. Well, that's one thing, but to leave Granny in an old age home and not have her family is the epiphany, the sauce that actually will kill her. And we saw so many people died alone, and that right there, that was torturous. Whoa. And So that was one collective example of how we became individuals and became a collective. Because in this book, the main event is that we are a whole, and we as an I is insignificant. I don't have a say. It's what we all benefit from. And for example, there is no I, like they don't refer to themselves as I, because I is selfish. I is out of date. I is not significant if it's not part of the we. So that was kind of scary. The other thing that was really scary in this book, and it wasn't a scary book, it wasn't like a horror or anything else, but if you see what it's trying to tell you, it's trying to tell you that the further we go into the science-based understanding, and the further we allow pharma and medical interventions to be a part of our life, we are going to get closer and closer to that reality, and that is the potential. Because of course, I mean, it might not turn out that way, but this is a very probable outcome. So one of the things that this society of science and logic would be, there would be no art, there would be no imagination, there would be no beauty. And I want you to consider just for a moment where we are in today's society. I would argue that we are already entering the ugly and the unimaginative state of our scientific, medical based believing society. And the reason why I would say that is look around. Just look around today when you're outside, or tomorrow, or whenever you decide to leave the house. And if you're in the city, you're going to be leaving the house more than once, I'm sure. Look around. Look around at the houses that are being built today. The houses that were being built 100 years ago were ornate in nature. They were different colors, different shapes, different sizes. They had high peaks, lower peak roofs. They had a variety of different flavors, even though they were all similar in terms of, like, they had a high pitch, to some degree, pitch roof. And of course they had windows. It's just much like humans. I mean, they have legs and feet and fingers and so on. And now take a look at what's being built today. I personally call them the Terminator shoeboxes. And the reason why is, look at all of the futuristic documentary movies. And when I say documentaries, I mean they're fiction. But I say they're documentary because they are telling us where they're taking us through the culture creating arm of Hollywood. And they're letting you know, hey, this is your destination, and when it comes, don't be alarmed. So culture creation allows us to be softened up before something happens. Now I want you to take a look around and look at the futuristic movies of even 1990s and the early 2000s. Everything was ugly. Everything. Everything was rainy. Everything was dim and dark. There was no sunshine. Now let me see. Wasn't there some gate person or other that said that they'd be dimming the sun? Isn't there already issues with the weather because, you know, climate change? And of course, climate changes. For goodness sake, a grade 2 knows that. Right now, we have spring. Spring is a little schizophrenic. Summer is hot. Fall is getting prepared subtly. It's beautiful and mature and subtle. And then there's winter, harsh and beautiful at the same time, like the queen from Narnia. But let me just remind you that when we read books like this, I remind you that this gentleman wrote this book in 1921, but it was not allowed to be printed because, well, it was just too close to the agenda that was being rolled out, and they knew that they shouldn't be giving this information to the public. So then it was snuck out, allegedly. This is the story, and I might not have it perfectly, but give or take, loosely, the story is it was escaped from Russia, and then it was actually translated into, I think, English and German and French or whatever they translated it in. And I want you to just consider it. You might not agree with this, and that's totally fine, but just keep it in the back of your mind. Just in the back, just like a little shelf that you don't dust very often. Just put it in the back of your head and just keep it there. Don't think about it anymore, but put it in the shelf. On that back shelf, I want you to consider that books and movies are something like in the Men in Black, when they go to the Inquirer to actually find out what's really happening. And I mean, I know it sounds absurd, but it's absolutely true. And I don't mean, everything that happened in the book is going to happen in real life. It's a foreshadowing. It's like encrypted. It's a story of what could be in our version. So it goes on to say basically everything is the same, everything is uniform, everybody walks together in uniform. Basically communism. Nobody owns anything. Everybody has an apartment that's completely clear. It's all made out of glass. Everybody sees what everybody's doing, and everybody else keeps everybody else in check, if that made any sense. And everybody chews a certain amount of times. Everybody is stuck to the letter of the law, which is the letter of the law, to the increment, to the millimeter, to whatever, to a very specific set of specifications. And in this world where everyone is perfect, there is really no room for emotion. There is no room for love. Love is something that's more or less a sickness that can be healed through an operation, basically a lobotomy. People are completely functional, and they are completely obedient to the one state, which is one state. There's only one. There's nothing else. What is that? That's like totalitarianism. That's like fascism and communism, all wrapped up in one. There's people that have tickets. They have permits to have SEX, and they are only allotted to certain people that they can choose from. The only time they can get privacy for, give or take, I think half an hour or an hour, is when they get their ticket, their pink ticket to have SEX, but they don't have such a thing as love or procreation. They think it's absolutely absurd. Nobody should have that. Nobody should have that right to raise a child, because that's too much of a job for just ordinary humans. It has to be left to the professionals. Oh, where have we heard that before? Like, the book is so startling and so frightening, because we are basically there. If you were to strip all of the one state names and and the fact that they don't have names, they have only numbers, we're there. The other thing that's very interesting in the book is that, oh, what was it? Geez, I lost it. Oh, people do not care about people in any significant way, because if people die, say for example, there's one part in the book where 10 numbers, they're not called people, 10 numbers die because they're testing like a rocket, like a ship. And as the narrator, I think his name is D503, and in different, actually it's so cute because in different books, different translation, his name is different. But D503, because in another translation, because Nick from Hayes Reviews did 2 translations, and one of them was, I think Melissa actually did the 2 translations. One of them was D503 and the other one was a triangle. So it just depends which book you're reading. But basically everything is the same. And as he's narrating, he refers to the numbers, 10 numbers perished while we were testing this machine. And that's it. That's it. There was no big deal about it. There was no loss in human life because it didn't matter. They didn't matter. They were just numbers, kind of like today. Social insurance numbers makes you a number to the government and makes you a number to your employer. And I would argue that when you're in school of 1,000 or 1,100 kids, you're also a number to the school and to the education system. Where now our health cards in Canada anyway, our health card is a number to the healthcare system. So we're there. And when people die in huge numbers, and when these huge numbers happen to be 70% children and women, and children between 5 and 9, I'll just add, I'm looking around and I'm seeing the reality of my world being reflected in the book I just read. Because we are not reacting like humans when we see that in 2025 people are being slaughtered. To what end? Not to an invasion by aliens and we're trying to defend our own land, our own world, but because of profit, because of money. And whether it's in Ukraine or whether it's in the Middle East, it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. What's relevant is our non-reaction, our compliance to allow it to happen. The fact that everybody and their parents, grandparents, children, and grandchildren aren't standing up and saying, whoa, 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 whoa. We don't care where it's happening. It's just not happening. Like, soldiers should all refuse to go to any of these wars from both sides. People should refuse to allow or pay their taxes until these wars stop. We should all be coming together for humanity's sake alone. It doesn't matter about the politics. What matters is the human life. And in this book, I was devastated how there is no humanity left. And, you know, the funny thing, which is not funny, ironic, is that this was such a well-lubed society. It was such a well-lubed society. It was so efficient. Everything ran smoothly and perfectly, except the fact that there was no humans present. There was 1 or 2 humans that were trying to fight the system. But what the last thing, because I'm almost at my place, the very last the very last thing that I want to just bring up from this book that was true, that was startling, is that it basically, and I didn't really catch this, it was Melissa that caught it, that also brought us back to Alan from Cutting Through the Matrix and all of his teachings. And I've said this to people over and over, but I didn't catch it in the book. Isn't that funny? And there's all these revolutionaries that are fighting the system from within the system. So fighting the system with the system. And the revolutionaries were doing that in this book. And in the book, you know why the revolutionaries failed? Because you cannot fight the system within the system, by the system, with the system tools, what I mean, right? We cannot win. The only way that we can beat this system, and Alan from Cutting Through the Matrix says it the best, he's the wisest man I have come across, the only way is to cure ourselves of our own systematic or system disease. So however we're infected by the system, we must, sorry, I had to put it on 4x4 because I'm going up the hill. We must cure ourselves, we must go in, and we must have righteous indignation for things that are happening to other people, not only to ourselves, mostly to other people. That is the only way, that we will be able to fight the system, by not participating, not by participating more and trying to fight the system within the system, because generally you'll fail. Like, it's kind of like lab rats or like lab monkeys conspiring to use the lab as a way to turn on the scientists. The scientists hold all the keys, they hold all the passcodes, they know the ins and outs of the entire lab, and the experimental lab animals just don't have all the information. So this book made me realize that I was down south last week, as you know, or I've been telling you, and I've realized that one of the things that also is very tiresome to me, that I didn't realize that I've started experiencing up here, up north, is that there is definitely less humanity in the humans down south. They're wonderful people. I'm not saying that like my friends are less human, but what I mean is, as a whole, when you're like out and about, people are more robotic, because people, like, I felt it, like people, and I understand why they're like this. I do understand, and I don't blame them, but what I blame is us as humans. We need to start recognizing these things, and it's so difficult to recognize that when you are in it, like when you're in this stew of crazy. I understand why it's hard to acknowledge it. Sorry, I'm multitasking and not well. And all I've got to say is that I came up here and I was reminded instantly when I arrived to my home. My next door neighbor is so human. It's so refreshing and such a breath of fresh air, and I am so grateful to God and to him. He plowed my whole driveway. My driveway is not a small driveway. Plowed my whole driveway because he knew we were coming in my daughter's little Pearl, and he knew that we were gonna have a hard time even getting into the road. You know what he did in the road? He drove his truck up and down the road so we would have 2 tire marks so that we wouldn't get stuck. Now tell me, who in their right mind would do that for me I'm not sure if this is a good idea. Going into Okay. Okay. Going into this, hopefully I don't get stuck. Let's see if I get stuck. All right. So I was reminded that humans have humanity, but that science, technology, and convenience and materialism washes it away little by little, and we don't notice. We don't notice until it is brought up and put right in front of our face. So I wanted to let you guys know that if you have an opportunity and you can get that book, I'll put it up again. I would say it's a great read. Anyways, that's my 2 cents for today. I am at my location. I've got to get going. And my friends, will see you again in the next one. Mwah.